Hello, friends, and welcome back to my channel, Ever Evolving Emily. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Today, I want to wish you Happy New Year. It is January 2025, and we're off to a brand new start. If there's something that I really love, it's definitely a brand new beginning. And that being said, we're going to talk about one of my most favorite topics to talk about, which is nutrition. I love nutrition. I love it so much. That being said, I do want to just reiterate, if you're new to my channel, that no, I'm not a nutritionist. No, I'm not a dietitian. But what I am going to talk about is what worked for me, what continues to work for me, and what didn't work for me. So without further ado, we're going to hop right into it. So just a little bit about me. I'm a product of the 80s, and back then there was just so much about nutrition that we didn't know. And I didn't, when I was growing up, I wanted to be an athlete of some kind. I really loved playing basketball and volleyball, but unfortunately, that wasn't necessarily where my talent, I wasn't given I felt like the Rudy of basketball, like all heart and no talent. And if you've ever seen that movie, it's a great movie. But growing up, I do have hypothyroidism that I've known about since I was really young. I didn't necessarily, I was kind of a chubby kid. That's the truth. And I just had no idea growing up, like how to, how to, anything about nutrition. I just didn't know. And we didn't know back then. We didn't know about, celiac, or maybe I shouldn't be eating gluten. Soy is a big one for me. There's just so many things I didn't know. So my how I evolved with nutrition was I wanted to know. First of all, I wanted to lean out pretty much my whole life. I kind of struggled a lot, especially in high school, with weight and feeling good, feeling healthy, feeling vibrant, having energy. The struggle was real for me. I did my best, but I had a ton of brain fog as a kid. I had so much brain fog in school, especially in high school. I just remember accidentally, falling asleep after lunchtime and a teacher coming up to me and asking me, are you okay? The struggle was kind of real for me as far as just not knowing what to put in my body. And we just didn't know back then. But now there's so much information out there. I feel like it's somewhat inundating with, what to eat, what not to eat, if you have fitness goals, what to do. And again, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a personal trainer. I am a 200-hour certified yogi. And just to let you know, I'm still continuing to figure it out. I have goals, I have things I'm working on myself, intentions with my health. But again, in 2012, 2013, these were the first big steps I took, or like little steps that helped me get big results. I took a mindful eating course at my yoga studio, and I had two teachers that ran the course, and they printed out a bunch of information for us on mindful eating. There was about, I think, 4 or 5, maybe 6 of us in the class, and this class was like, I don't know, 5 weeks long. I was the only one to finish the course. I was so determined because I didn't feel good like 90% of the time. I was so determined to figure out what I was supposed to be eating. So the desire was on my heart to really, really figure out what worked for me. One of the things that we talked about in the mindful eating was being present when you're eating. Our lives are so busy and we go, 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 go. And then it's like we just, try to eat. And I've been a server in the restaurant industry for years. So, I do know what it's like to not have time, or you're so busy and then you're trying to eat, and then you don't have time to eat. It's a lot. I get it. But I think for me, doing that course and spending so much time in yoga and spending so much time, present moment awareness. What's your intention with this meal? Are you grateful for this meal that you're about to eat? All that good stuff, being present when you're eating. Maybe not eating with the TV on, just sitting down enjoying your food, with your eyes, using all your senses when you're when you're eating. We also did an exercise in this mindful eating course of writing down how alcohol makes you feel. So, if you are drinking on a somewhat regular basis, just being understanding and like having the awareness of how alcohol makes you feel. Um, Alcohol and food, like certain things. I've noticed in my life that certain foods make me feel a certain way. So when I first started learning about nutrition and figuring out what worked for me, clean eating was a big thing for me. My yoga teachers explained it like anything that had 1 to 3 ingredients. 1 to 3 ingredients. That is it. And back then, I wasn't even meal prepping really. I was just starting to understand what meal prepping is and why it's so important. Um, I just, again, we're talking about changing habits here. I had like, about 20 plus years of habits that I wanted to change. That's 20 years of like the same pathways in your brain, trying to shift and change. So, again, this was a practice. I had to forgive myself. I had to do a lot of forgiving. So, starting with clean eating, I had people ask me, Emily, what's clean eating? I was like, I thought everybody kind of knew this. I mean, a lot of people do know what it is to eat clean, but I didn't. So again, for me, clean eating was 1 to 3 ingredients and a lot of meal prepping. That's what it slowly became for me. The next thing I learned was if you are looking to change a habit, add one and drop one. So, like, add a new habit in order to replace the habit that you no longer want to keep. Understand it takes 21 days to change your habit and 6 months to keep it. So, for me, I'm especially with nutrition, I think that year I decided to drop dairy, and I was never a big soda drinker anyway, but I would have like sips of soda, especially on my shift. I would have a sip of Sprite or a sip of Coke, and like in these tiny tiny little cone cups. And also at the time I was eating regular bread. So it was just like this, a lot of foods that I didn't know. I knew that, like, yes, like it's better to eat like a plate of mixed greens with a protein, but I just wasn't doing that on a consistent basis. So when I went through yoga training, my body was definitely shifting and changing because of how I was exercising and, giving myself all this self love, so much self love in yoga class. And then I would be so inspired by the people around me. Um, Maybe they could move on their mat a certain way, and I wanted to be able to do that. That's still a part of like my desires, is flexibility. But back then I was just so inspired and I wanted to change so much. And I knew that the only way for me to get better and better on my mat was to change my diet. And then I also learned that year that your body is, I think, 80 to 90% of your body is your nutrition and what you're putting in your body. And then the rest of it is like how much you exercise, your sleep, your stress level, you know, and then, we can go into other things like as far as like blood work goes. Like, I was anemic for a lot of years and I didn't know how much that was impacting me. So again, I'm not saying don't go, to a doctor. Absolutely. Go get your blood work done, see what they say. And then, but also I do think there's so much to becoming intuitive about your body and how to what works for you. So, way back then, I wasn't doing Whole30. Um, I was just figuring it out. I think that I journaled or wrote down like what foods made me feel a certain way, how I felt after eating a slice of American cheese. I mean, obviously that's a very processed food, but like certain foods I was eating on a regular basis um, didn't make me feel good, made me sad, made me depressed, made me tired. Eating regular bread, graham crackers, just all kinds of cookies. And even when I was trying to eat healthy, it just took me forever to figure out, oh, like a plate of greens actually makes me feel really good. Taking my vitamins, having my greens, having an iron supplement, doing these things, having a protein, n- doing the work slowly helped me to realize what I should and should not be putting in my body. So I think it's really important to know your body. Certain foods just do not make me feel good, and if it's processed, it usually makes me feel like shit. So that's something to really know for yourself. Also, another thing is back then I wanted to be like vegan or vegetarian, and I'm not going to say that that's not a route that I'm going to try again. But back then, when I tried, I did end up consuming a lot of food that maybe had soy in it. Soy is no good for me. It's just not. And this, I remember like my depression skyrocketed. I was anemic, um, and there was just a number of like repercussions I felt trying to constantly eat like fake protein or plant-based protein. Now I think there's a lot of plant-based protein that's out there that's made completely different. So, going that route might be something that I try again. But back then, it didn't work for me. I think it's really great to write down how you feel after specific foods. I mean, growing up, I grew up on like, sandwiches with American cheese, regular bread, Miracle Whip, um, you know, on like rye bread, Yes, was that sandwich delicious? Absolutely. But I felt so sick. I felt so tired. I didn't know that that's absolutely something I shouldn't be consuming. So I think like have a little notebook and start writing down how you feel after certain things that you consume, after certain food. Your nutritional diet is just as important as your mental diet, which is something I'll talk about later. And then doing so much forgiveness for myself, being kind to myself, forgiving that I didn't know what worked, and then just moving on. If I had a setback, moving on, forgiving myself repeatedly and moving on. Forgiveness was a big one, and it continues to be a big one for me. Just forgive yourself if you have a setback. Forgive yourself if you mistreat yourself. Forgive yourself. Just forgive and move on. Looking back, I had and have had a lot of self-sabotaging behaviors, especially when it came to food. Especially when it came to food. But I think that the cure or like key to ending self-sabotaging behaviors was actually self-love. I read a book, Stop Doing That Shit. Great read. I've read many books on like, how I had to stop, I wanted to stop binge eating. So my binge eating was minimal. And then years later it like exploded and skyrocketed. I was fasting too much. And the key that I learned for all of this was self-love. Self-love to me heals so many sabotaging behaviors. Self-love. So keep your journal, a journal for a week, for a month, journal for a while, or have your little notebook and write down how you feel after you eat certain foods or how you feel in general. Like just how you feel, how does your body feel? I know that certain dairy, I do not respond well to certain dairy. I actually saw a naturopath once, and she did some kind of test on me with like what my how my body what my body should and shouldn't be consuming. And it was like goat cheese is okay, but regular cheese is not. My body will process things. I think certain foods, like I could have maybe um, maybe like a white cheese. But if I have yogurt or cottage cheese, my body just does. I do not feel good. Or I might feel good, but then my joints hurt. Dairy causes a lot of inflammation. That is something that I was told a long time ago, and I do feel like it's true because when I have tried to incorporate dairy in my diet, um, I just my joints hurt. I don't feel good. And I'm not going to say I never have a little bit of ice cream. I do, but I tend to pick and choose. Maybe that's more of a summer treat, for me. And I try to avoid that. I try to avoid that. So again, have your notebook ready, little tiny notebook, carry it around with you, or track it in your phone. I'm a little old school where I do like to write a lot of things down versus tracking in my phone. Even when I've tracked in my phone, I think because I'm using, electronic device, it kind of drives me a little bit crazy. So find what works for you, give it a try, see what happens. The next thing I want to mention is Whole30. Ah, Whole30. Why I love Whole30 so much, and maybe just one of the drawbacks that I felt about it, one or two, but for the most part, I really love Whole30. So I found out about Whole30 in 2015. One of my friends had a book, and she let me borrow it, and it was literally about clean eating and how to take the inflammation out of your body. And I had tried so many things and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna give this a try. I'm gonna read this book. Now Whole30 is so big, you can Google it and so much information pops up. I think they even have coaches for Whole30 now. But basically, what you're doing is really, it's such clean eating. It does I meal prep like crazy, especially when I'm trying to dedicate myself to it. But in a nutshell, there's a lot of no's with Whole30. No dairy, no carrageenan, no which is, I forget what carrageenan is specifically, is it? But it's not good for you. No soy, no alcohol, no sugar. It literally trained me to find the sugar that was hidden in many, many, many foods. Maybe you're getting turkey bacon. Well, does your turkey bacon have like turbinol sugar in it? You know, these food companies are crafty and they will put corn syrup in everything to sweeten it. So anyway, Whole30 was and literally is, I think, basically what I do mostly on a regular basis. And now I know what works and what doesn't work for me. So Whole30, I would say, is basically kind of like my foundation for clean eating about 90% of the time. Again, I'm not perfect. This is a practice, but when I did Whole30 for the first time in 2015, it was like I did it for I think a solid month, and then my excess kind of weight that I'd always wanted to lose melted melted off of me. So essentially what I was really starting to do was just I was meal prepping, I was eating whole foods all the time. Whole30 gives you this entire timeline of how you're going to feel on your journey. So that is something really great that Whole30 does. How you're going to feel on day like 2 to 6, 5 to 10, day 11, a lot of people want to quit. And then, but if you just keep going, I always remember by day 16, I had so much energy. I felt so good. I felt like, I feel ready to exercise. I feel ready to hit the gym. I feel ready to go to yoga. I have enough energy for at work. My attitude was changing. I felt really positive a lot. Like I had, just kind of like the surge of positive energy. And it really was because of what I had gotten rid of out of my diet, giving up what no longer serves me, giving up what no longer serves you, finding what does. So I was meal prepping a lot, and that meant like making vegetables and figuring out what proteins I could eat. And at that time, I was so dedicated. I didn't eat any bread. I didn't eat any pancakes. I didn't eat, even if they were like protein pancakes, I didn't do any of it. I literally, I also didn't eat nut butters. I switched from butter to ghee, and I used olive oil spray that didn't have any other shit in it. it was literally like just olive oil spray. So slowly but surely, I was making all these really, really small changes that ended up really helping me in the long run. It just helped me so much to figure out what works for me, what doesn't work for me, and to be honest, I really didn't miss a lot of the food that I had been consuming. Whole30 also tells you, I think, not to weigh yourself during that time period. Take a break, like take a break from the scale. Um, and also to, there was a couple other things they focus on, but yeah, not weighing yourself, not tracking. I think track if you want so that you know what's working. But it was like you don't have to count calories. You're not counting calories. You're just eating, listening to your body, eating till you're satisfied. Eating until you feel good, and slowing down. I think slowing down is a big thing in life in general. Slow down. Kind of like what Ferris Bueller says. If you don't slow down once in a while, you're going to miss it. So slow down and take that time to start to really notice what's working, what's not working. The only drawback for me with Whole30 was like basically if you mess up, they want you to start like all over again. Um, and you got to start back at one. Uh, and then also, I felt like the only other drawback that it had for me was I would, because I'm really hard on myself, I would start to really beat myself up if I fucked up. I would start to really beat myself up, like, ugh. And then my perfectionism issues would come to the surface, feeling like I had to be perfect. I have to be perfect. Oh my gosh. Really, who are you trying to be perfect for? you know, I didn't have to answer to anybody. I was just, this is something I was trying. I do think it is one of the best things you can do for your body, 100%. Um, and also, I think it's really important to have the awareness of what else are you doing. So we know, at this point in time, we all know like there's a number of factors that come into play when we're talking about health, fitness, and like maybe your fitness goals and what you want to achieve. Your sleep. Are you taking vitamins? What's your morning routine like? Are you meal prepping? How are you handling stress? I think how you're handling stress is a big one. There's along with my yoga background, I started doing Breathe with Sandy. Thank you so much. This channel is so good. I've also done Wim Hof breathing techniques. I think when we go through our day, it's about, I think, nervous system regulation. I remember that my emotions would sometimes just like really overpower me. And then my mind was spinning out of control. Or maybe then I felt like shit about myself. There were many times where I just felt like total garbage about myself. And it's definitely really sad. But like, how are you getting rid of those negative thoughts? How are you flipping the script? How are you handling stress? I highly suggest if you're having a lot of stress, try, a breathing. There's so many channels on YouTube now. Go do some breathing. I would take the time to just breathe. Even when I worked as a server, I would like separate myself and go in the bathroom for like 2 to 3 minutes and just take a moment, close my eyes, and practice breathing. I think doing breath work is so beneficial. I think it's so beneficial to start to take a deep breath, because when we do that, your whole body will function better. Your stress level will come down. One of the biggest things I just figured out for myself was how to handle the fact that I'm anemic. And also, I do want to add this little extra piece about my background, which is like growing up, I was on, gut health is really important. I was on a lot of antibiotics growing up. I had chronic strep, chronic strep throat growing up. I finally got my tonsils out when I was in college, but I had chronic strep. Being sick, I kind of hate to think about, like, I know I needed them at the time, um, but being on antibiotics a lot as a kid, I think about what did that do to my gut health. If I was, when I taking, I'm not saying don't take medication, of course I'm not, but I think about that. What did that do to my gut? What did that do to my gut health? I think when I've done Whole30, it actually really helped me to reset my gut. And then also, I put myself on a really good probiotic, prebiotic and probiotic. And I also, with being anemic, my mom's a nurse and she kept trying to tell me how much it was affecting me. Sorry, I kind of didn't want to listen. But I was like, oh, I'll just deal with it. It was kind of an afterthought. Well, wouldn't you know it? I literally saw my doctor on Tuesday of last week. It's only been about a week. I saw my doctor. I was still anemic, and I was like, that's it. I'm going to throw myself, on a consistent basis, consistently. I'm going to throw myself on a really great iron supplement. And wouldn't you know it? So, and I've also been eating like giant spinach salads, like spinach, and I've been eating with it some mandarin oranges because the citrus with the spinach and the iron helps your body absorb the iron so much better, and I feel like a new person. So I was laughing because I was like, really, has this been my problem like for so many years that I've just been tired? I thought I was tired because of work. I thought I was tired because my diet wasn't on track 100%. I thought I was tired because I was just because of my thyroid, you know? I thought I was just tired for all these other reasons. No, it's because I'm pretty sure it's because I've been anemic. And now that I'm like giving my body what it needs with nutrition and a supplement, my energy level is through the roof. I'm also practicing so much self love right now. So I do think there's been a giant shift in my body and in my energy simply because I'm figuring out what works. And I'm doing a little bit. I'm doing the work. I'm doing the work. I do have goals in mind. I am trying to change my body again. Um, but these are all like this is the amazing foundation that I figured out for myself. And I hope that this information, I trust that it's going to help you on your way too. Basic stuff, 1 to 3 ingredients, try Whole30, make sure you're getting enough water, get some trace minerals, add them to your water. You will be amazed at how hydrated you feel, how good you feel. And meal prep. Meal prep is just as, I feel meal prepping is just as, if not more important than actually going to the gym. And know that you're doing a good job. When we try, just give yourself, like, congratulate yourself, be kind to yourself. Be really kind to yourself during this process if you're trying to make changes. Forgive yourself for past mistakes because that's how we learn. I literally think I learned by failing. I think I learned by failing so many times and then picking myself up so many times. I just kept failing and picking myself up, failing and failing and failing. And then find exercise that you really love. For me, it's going to be simple stuff depending on like there were times in my life where I just walked. Yes, just walking anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes. Walking brought my stress level down, listening to some good music when I was walking, praying when I walked. I used to call them worship walks or prayer walks, where I would go and like listen to something inspiring. Above Inspiration was a channel on YouTube I listened to a lot. Now I listen to a variety of things, but getting some fresh air, that's a big one. Especially I know it's cold right now where I live in the Chicago area. It's definitely cold, but throw on your winter coat, get some snow bibs, take a 20-minute walk outside, bundle up. The cold air feels so good to me, as long as it's not too cold. And go to a yoga class, try something new. Don't be afraid to try something new. I wouldn't suggest, like, if you're brand new to fitness or anything or brand new to yoga, I wouldn't suggest taking like a fast-paced vinyasa. I wouldn't do that. You don't want to injure yourself on this new journey, but maybe taking a hatha yoga class, a beginner yoga class, Ashtanga. Go venture out, see what works for you. If you're starting to lift weights, I did used to lift weights. I loved lifting weights. There's a lot of things I've dabbled in. I also did kickboxing for a long time. I worked with a trainer. He was amazing, and he was such a positive individual, and I loved working with him. He was such a great guy. And so I've worked with trainers, I've worked with yoga teachers, I've worked with people at gyms. I really enjoyed my fitness journey and the fitness journey I continue to be on. So find out what works for you. And that's mirror work too. Look in the mirror, tell yourself you love yourself. That's something else I'm going to talk about. How I have and continue to shift my self concept. I had kind of an afterthought, and something I want to share is that back in the day, I know I keep circling around 2012, 2013, but it really was the first time I experienced transformation in my life. And at that time, my weight had hit an all-time high. I was 190, and so just under, I'm 5'8", so I am relatively tall, and I'm not, like, my frame is not, um, it's not small. I'm not a small person. So I often think of myself as this, like, tall avatar, you know. But at the time back then, I was circling around 190, and I remember getting on the scale, and I said to myself, I literally remember I was 191.6 or point 0.8, and I said to myself, Emily, when is this going to be enough for you? Mm. And I said that, like, I really remember closing my eyes and looking at and like looking inward at myself. And I said, Emily, when is this going to be enough for you? My eating and self-sabotage and like self-hatred it was so potent. It was so big. It was so just, I didn't know how to love myself. I did, I finally started to tell myself I loved myself no matter what. I started to tell myself I loved myself no matter what my weight was, no matter how my body shape was. I started to really tell myself all the time how much I loved myself. And I remember back then, like after I weighed myself, like I wish I had this picture. I might try to find it. I had this, it was Christmas time, and I was wearing this Santa Claus shirt and it said believe in it. And I remember I knew that if I wanted to change, the first step was self love. The first thing I had to do was really start to love myself. And I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was like, I love you. I love you. I love you no matter your weight right now. I love you no matter your body shape right now. I love you. And I used to tell myself, like, I love myself a lot, like random times in the day. I would just start to tell myself, I love you. This is where we're at. I love you now, the way you are right now. And it's okay to change. I had to really give myself permission to change. But the first step really was self love. I trust that this video helped you, and I wish you well on your journey. And good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world. I wish you love. I wish you joy. I wish you happiness and peace in your life and on your journey. Namaste.